Today, it's a great day, because you will learn about a mystical architect of the inner world. Hugh of St. was not only a theologian, but one of the great mystical engineers of the inner life. Living in the heart of medieval Paris, he envisioned the soul as a grand cathedral, an architecture built by God, illuminated by reason, memory, imagination, and love. Hugh believed that knowledge was not merely intellectual, it was spiritual. To know something truly meant to let it transform consciousness and draw the mind toward divine light. This is why he described the human journey as a ladder of contemplation, a rising path where the soul ascends through levels of perception, understanding, and mystical awareness. For Hugh, contemplation was not escape. It was construction, the building of an inner sanctuary where the soul becomes capable of receiving God's radiance. In this video, we explore how Hugh mapped the soul as an ascending architecture of divine illumination. The soul has three powers: memory, intelligence, and will. Hugh began by identifying the soul's three fundamental faculties: memory, intelligence, and will. Memory is the vast inner storehouse where experiences, truths, and impressions are kept, an inner library shaping consciousness. Intelligence is the power of understanding, the capacity to perceive meaning, order, and wisdom in the world. And will is the faculty of love, intention, and desire, the orientation of the soul toward what it values most. Hugh believed that spiritual growth occurs when these three faculties are harmonized. Memory must hold what is eternal rather than what is distracting. Intelligence must learn to see with clarity rather than confusion. And will must be aligned with divine goodness rather than fleeting desires. This triad forms the architecture of consciousness, the groundwork of the inner cathedral. When these faculties are cultivated, the soul becomes orderly, luminous, and capable of ascending toward God. The ladder of contemplation. From seeing to being. Hugh described the ascent of the soul as a ladder of contemplation, a sequence of stages through which consciousness rises toward divine awareness. The first level is simple observation, learning to see the world without distortion, with attention and openness. The second level is meditation, where the mind begins to reflect on what it sees, seeking meaning rather than surface impressions. The third level is contemplation, a state where the soul becomes still, the mind becomes clear, and divine truth begins to reveal itself gently within. Hugh believed that contemplation is not something the mind achieves by effort alone. It is something received, like light entering a quiet room. The ladder, then, is not a climb of ambition, but a refinement of perception. As the soul becomes quiet, humble, and concentrated, consciousness becomes capable not only of knowing about God, but of experiencing God's presence as the inner light of all knowing. Knowledge as illumination, not information. For Hugh of St. knowledge was never merely an accumulation of facts or doctrines. True knowledge is illumination, a transformation of the inner world. When we learn truth deeply, it changes how we see, how we think, and how we love. Hugh insisted that knowledge should lead to inner clarity, compassion, and spiritual maturity. He criticized the intellectual pride of those who studied only to appear wise. True learning, he said, humbles the soul and expands its capacity for wonder. In this sense, every subject, from scripture to the natural world, becomes a window through which divine light shines. The more the mind learns, the more transparent it becomes. This vision turns education into a form of spiritual practice, the refinement of consciousness so that it may reflect divine intelligence. Knowledge is not about possessing concepts. It is about allowing truth to reshape the soul from within. The architecture of the inner temple. Hugh often compared the soul to a sacred building, a structure designed for divine communion. Memory forms the foundation stones, intelligence forms the arches and windows, and will forms the inward sanctuary where love resides. As the soul grows in wisdom and virtue, this inner architecture becomes more stable, harmonious, and filled with light. Hugh taught that every act of reflection, every moment of introspection, and every practice of humility contributes to the construction of this inner temple. The ultimate purpose of this architecture is to prepare consciousness for divine presence. When the temple is ready, when the soul is centered, clear, and purified, God's light enters effortlessly, illuminating the mind and warming the heart. This is the core of Hugh's mysticism. The soul becomes a place where God and humanity meet, not through external rituals alone, but through the inner architecture of awareness. Union through contemplation. The soul resting in God. The final stage of Hugh's ladder is a state of quiet union, where the soul rests in God with a clarity that transcends thought. This is not a fusion of essences, but a harmony of presence, the human soul aligning itself with the divine light that sustains it. In this state, the mind no longer struggles to understand, it simply receives. The will no longer reaches outward, it rests in love. The memory no longer clings to the past, it becomes spacious and luminous. Hugh described this experience as a peace beyond all knowing, a depth of awareness where consciousness becomes transparent to God's radiance. This is the goal of the inner architecture he described, a consciousness capable of living in continual awareness of divine presence. Through contemplation, the soul becomes what it was always intended to be, a vessel of light, a sanctuary of love, and a mirror of the divine. The soul as a cathedral of light. Hugh of St. Victor offers a profound vision of consciousness as a living structure shaped by memory, intelligence, and will, ascending through contemplation toward divine illumination. Knowledge becomes transformation, attention becomes prayer, and the soul becomes a cathedral glowing with the presence of God. In a world full of fragmentation and noise, Hugh's message remains timeless. Build the inner temple, climb the ladder of contemplation, and let consciousness awaken to the divine light already shining within. I've realized that some of you are not subscribed. So, if you could do me a favor and double-check if you're a subscriber to this channel, that would be tremendously appreciated. It's the free thing that anybody that watches this videos can do to help us here to keep everything going. So please double-check if you've subscribed, and thank you so much, because in a strange way, you are part of our history, and you are on this journey with us, and I really appreciate you for that. So yeah, thank you for being here.